Do you know what the scariest sound in the world is? It's not screaming. It's not crying. The scariest sound is hearing someone you love talking to something you cannot see. And in 2026, that happened to me. My name is Jack. I was born in a small village in the Philippines, but when I was 11 years old, my mother moved with me to Canada. As I grew older, I forgot almost everything about that village. The old roads, the heavy rain, the strange stories people used to whisper at night. Especially the stories about our family house. People in the village believed something lived there, something that stayed inside the kitchen. I never believed any of it, until the summer we went back. The moment we arrived, I felt uncomfortable. The house looked older than I remembered. The wood outside was dark from years of rain. The windows looked almost black at night. And even though the weather outside was extremely hot, the inside of the house felt cold. Not normal cold, dead cold. The kind of cold that makes your stomach feel heavy. My grandmother still lived there alone. She looked happy to see us, but something about her felt different. Nervous, distracted. Every few minutes, she looked toward the kitchen, like she was making sure nobody was standing there. The first strange thing happened on my second night. I woke up around 2 a.m. because I needed water. The house was completely dark. As I walked toward the kitchen, I suddenly heard something. A chopping sound. Slow, careful, like someone cutting vegetables on a wooden board. I stopped walking immediately. The kitchen light was off. Everything was dark. But the sound continued. I whispered, "Grandma?" The chopping instantly stopped. Complete silence. Then, very slowly, I heard footsteps moving inside the kitchen. Not toward me, away from me. Like someone had heard my voice and quietly walked deeper into the darkness. I felt goosebumps all over my body. Then suddenly, my grandmother appeared behind me and grabbed my shoulder so hard I almost screamed. Her face looked terrified. She whispered, "Never come near the kitchen at night." Then she pulled me back to my room. I barely slept after that. The next morning, I asked her what she was hiding, but she acted like nothing happened. She just quietly made breakfast without looking at me. And the weirdest part? There was a cutting board on the kitchen counter, covered in fresh, wet knife marks. That afternoon, my childhood friend Maria came to visit with her little son, Gabriel. Seeing her again actually made me feel better. For a while, things felt normal. We talked about school memories, Canada, old neighbors. And eventually, Gabriel fell asleep. We placed him in the back bedroom while Maria and I stayed in the living room. Rain started falling outside. The kind of heavy rain that makes the entire house feel trapped. Then suddenly, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then the power went out completely. The house became dark and silent. Maria nervously laughed. "This house still feels creepy." I smiled a little, but honestly, I agreed with her. I grabbed 2 candles from the kitchen drawer and lit them. That's when Maria suddenly froze. Her smile disappeared instantly. She was staring behind me, toward the kitchen. I slowly asked, "What's wrong?" She didn't answer. Her breathing became shaky. Then she whispered, "Jack, I thought you said your grandmother went outside." My stomach dropped. She did. Maria slowly stood up. Her eyes never left the kitchen. "There's a woman standing there." I turned around immediately. The kitchen was empty. Only darkness. Only candlelight. Nothing else. But Maria kept staring, like she could clearly see someone. "She's near the sink," Maria whispered. "She's cutting something." And then, Tock, tock, tock. The chopping sound returned, louder this time. My heart started racing, because now I could hear it too. But there was nobody there. Maria grabbed my arm tightly. Her hand felt ice cold. "She's wearing white clothes," she whispered, "and she has short black hair." I stared into the darkness of the kitchen, trying to see anything, but there was nothing. Then Maria suddenly took a step backward. Her face became completely pale. Oh my God. I felt panic rising inside me. What? Her voice started shaking. She stopped cutting. The entire house became silent. No rain, no fan, nothing. Then Maria whispered something that made my blood run cold. "She's turning around." At that exact moment, the smell hit us. Rotten, wet, like dead meat left in the sun for days. Maria covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. "She's looking at us now." I felt completely frozen. Then Maria whispered, "She doesn't have eyes." The candlelight suddenly started flickering violently. The room became freezing cold, and then I heard breathing, right behind me. Slow, wet, not human. I couldn't move. Every part of my body felt heavy. Then a woman's voice whispered beside my ear, "This is my house." I spun around in terror. Nobody there. But suddenly, Gabriel screamed from the back room. It was the worst scream I had ever heard. Not a child crying, a scream of pure pain. Maria ran toward the bedroom. I followed her. Gabriel was sitting upright on the bed, shaking violently. His tiny hands clawed at his throat, and dark blue finger marks were appearing around his neck. Like invisible hands were choking him. Maria started screaming. I grabbed Gabriel and tried pulling him away from the bed, but suddenly, bang! The bedroom door slammed shut by itself. The candles went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Then we heard it again. The chopping sound, coming down the hallway, closer, closer, closer. Maria was crying uncontrollably now. I tried opening the door, but it wouldn't move. It felt like someone was holding it shut from the outside. Then Gabriel pointed toward the corner of the room and quietly whispered, "Lady." I slowly turned my head, and finally, I saw her, standing in the darkness near the closet, tall, thin, too thin. Her white clothing looked dirty and wet. Her head tilted slightly to one side, and her face, I wish I never saw her face. Her eyes were completely black, empty holes, and her mouth stretched into a long, unnatural smile. She looked directly at Gabriel. Then she started walking toward him, slowly, dragging one foot across the floor. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Maria was screaming prayers. I couldn't move. The woman kept getting closer and closer. Then suddenly, she stopped, because someone else had entered the house. The front door downstairs slammed open. I heard my grandmother shouting something in our old language. The entire house shook violently. The woman in white suddenly turned her head toward the hallway. For the first time, her smile disappeared. Then my grandmother screamed, "Leave this house now!" The bedroom door burst open instantly. The candles relit by themselves, and the woman vanished, just like that, gone. Maria grabbed Gabriel and ran out of the room crying. I followed them downstairs. My grandmother stood near the kitchen, holding something in her hands, a small wooden cross. Her hands were shaking badly. She looked terrified, but not surprised, like she had seen this before, many times. That night, rain continued pouring outside while my grandmother finally told me the truth. Many years ago, my great-grandmother's sister lived in that house. She spent most of her time inside the kitchen. One night, a fire broke out while she was cooking alone. The family found her body burned inside the kitchen the next morning. But according to my grandmother, something never left that room after her death. People started hearing chopping sounds at night. Some claimed they saw a woman near the sink. Others smelled rotting flesh before getting sick. And according to old villagers, the spirit hated visitors, especially children, because she never had children of her own. I asked my grandmother why she continued living there. She stared silently at the kitchen for several seconds. Then she quietly said, "Because if the house stays empty for too long, she becomes angry." I felt sick hearing that. Then I asked the question I wish I never asked. How many people have seen her? My grandmother looked directly at me and whispered, "Everyone." That night, none of us slept. Around 3 a.m., while rain hit the windows outside, I heard it again. The chopping sound. Very slowly, I looked toward my bedroom door and froze, because underneath the door, I could see a shadow standing outside, completely still, listening, waiting. Then, a soft voice whispered from the hallway, "Jack?" It sounded exactly like my mother, but my mother was asleep downstairs. The voice came again, closer this time. "Jack, open the door." I remembered my grandmother's warning. If someone calls your name at night, don't answer. So I stayed silent. The shadow remained outside my room for almost an hour, without moving. The next morning, we packed our bags immediately. Maria refused to ever return to the house again. And before leaving, my grandmother pulled me aside. She looked serious, almost frightened. Then she said, "If you ever hear chopping sounds again after leaving this country, do not look toward the kitchen." I nervously laughed and asked why, but she didn't laugh. We returned to Canada the next day. For months, everything felt normal again, until one night. I was alone in my apartment making coffee around midnight. Then suddenly, a chopping sound came from my kitchen. Slow, careful, exactly the same sound. My entire body froze. And then, very softly, I smelled something rotten behind me. I never turned around, and I still haven't.